Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Transformation Talk. I am here today with Desiree Adaway. She is a consultant, coach, and mentor to individuals and organizations, and I am thrilled to be talking to her today because she is all about transformation.
I am, and thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. And I just have to say, you know, sometimes it sounds a little dry when you say consultant, coach, mentor, but here are some of the workshop titles that are on your site. The beauty of community building and transformative change, the power of deep and soulful listening, and thriving in transition. I'm like, this woman is, she is all about change.
I cannot do anything that's shallow, right? I'm always about the deeper dive, whether that's talking with an individual or an organization. So, saying hello for me is just the beginning for me to be like, so tell me everything about yourself. So it's code word for I just want to dig deep into your life and everything about you. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's so refreshing, and I know that your heart has been, and I think still is, really in the nonprofit world. Is that right?
Yeah. 25 years before I started my own business, 25 years in the nonprofit field. And I love it. I love the sector. Which is why I really push people within the sector to change it so that it can survive. It needs to be transformed so that we can do more and better work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same for the individuals who work in the sector. The majority of people that I coach are actually folks, nonprofit professionals, even though I do small business as well. But the majority are nonprofit professionals, and I'm about making sure that they, again, are ready and to do the work, to do the hard work that communities really need.
Yeah, so powerful. When I did my master's in psychology, my specialization was community psychology, and that just so drew me in, and I feel like you are a living example of exactly what that's about.
Yeah. Communities are really powerful. I was working with a mastermind group this past weekend, and we spent a lot of time focused on community, and it was interesting because they never saw themselves as a community. They're like, oh, we're in a affiliation, we're this group, and I said, no, we're a community, mm-hmm. right? And with that, it comes pseudo-community and then the deep, real work that brings us the deep and real honest conversation and dialogue, that continuous care and introspection into each other's life, the mistakes that we make, the way we hurt each other, all of that is what helps to build real, lasting community. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, you can call yourself whatever you want to call, but when you come together and you're saying, I'm invested in who you are as an individual, I'm invested in our own growth, then we're a community, and we are forming and informing. We are creating something pretty amazing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what led you to this work? I mean, I know there's some big formative experiences in your life, like your dad died when he was very young.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You were 21? Is that?
Yeah, I was actually, my parents were exactly 20 years older than me, so I was 20. My dad died before he was 46, and so I was 25. And I just had a baby, my oldest daughter, she'll be 23 this year. She was 1.
Wow.
When my dad died unexpectedly of a massive heart attack. So there are lots of big events that has formed who I am and how I do my work. When I left home at 16 to travel the world. I hitchhiked through Europe when I was 17. And I had a very contentious relationship with my dad, and then he died, literally out of the blue when I was, in my mid-20s, and he was a very young man. And so it's interesting when he did die so unexpectedly, how many things were left unsaid, and I'm always fascinated by how we remember those that have died. It's been 20 odd years later now since my dad died, and I spent some time with his family over Thanksgiving, and it's interesting because they have great memories of him. He was their favorite uncle. He was their absolute positive favorite uncle, favorite brother, favorite son, and those are not my memories of him. My memories of him were me and him like this, And so I'm always fascinated when I go around them and they tell stories about how he made them laugh and how he, was You know, how he would take them go-kart riding and just all these things. And I was just like, that wasn't the man I knew, right? And so I think it just proves there's so many shades of gray within people and communities, right? So many shades of gray, and how well do we know each other, and how much deeper are we willing to go to know people? So I do wish that he had lived so that I could have gone deeper with him, and we could have gone deeper together, and that he could see who I am today. One thing about him that was wholly fascinating, I just never thought he was a great dad, but he was enthralled about being a grandfather. And I don't know if this happens for a lot of people, but when I found out I was pregnant and this was his first grandchild, this man told anybody who would listen that he was going to be a grandfather. And I was just like, who is this man? This is not the man that I knew growing up, right? And when I had my daughter, he was the first person at the hospital after I had her. And, you know, that was who he talked about every day. And so I think somehow that for him, he was definitely getting a second chance with the grandkids. So she didn't have him in her life long, and he didn't have her long. But I think the impact for him was pretty.
Wow. Yeah, that gives me chills, because it just feels like it feels like redemption or something in a little bit of a way.
I tell people all the time, my dad was not meant to be a dad. He got married because that's what you did, right? Like, that's what you did at that time. You were a young adult and you met a girl and you got married, and he shouldn't have. He should have enjoyed his life more, and he was a big adventurer, and he should have gone out and done all these other things. So he was not a great dad. He was not a great partner. But what he was an amazing friend. When you were his friend, you were his friend. And you were his family. And he was so committed to you. And he had this string of what other people would call misfits, who were his friends. And he loved them, and they loved him. And so I always tell people, I didn't learn how to be a parent from my dad, but I learned how to be a really good friend from my dad, because he was a great friend to people. So,
that's neat. That's neat that you've been able to really find that beauty in him. You know, because some people, I think, when their father or their parent is not a good parent and they die, it's just emotionally really tricky.
Oh, it is. And there's still times where, you know, somebody will say something and it'll trigger me, and I'm like, oh, what a jerk he was. You know, it'll just bring it all back for me. But the reality is, you know what? He was human. He was human. He got married too young. He had a family too soon. He was overwhelmed by it all. He was an addict. He had substance issues, you know, that he fought and was trying to deal with in his life. But you know what? There was still beauty in that chaos, and there's always beauty in chaos, and there's always something worth loving about people. And you used the perfect word. There's always redemption. I truly believe there's always redemption for individuals, for communities. Anybody, you can be reborn from the ashes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it about this work that drew you in? Like, how did you get from, I don't know, having two children very young to this nonprofit work to what you do now, which is really, I mean, you really talk about courage and fearlessness and leadership, and you have some great posts about freedom and letting go of limitations and standing in power.
Yeah. It comes from being scared, and it comes from making mistakes. You know, it comes from my own place of darkness. So I left home when I was 16 and traveled the world, and it's not because I had any great desire to live in Germany, which is where I ended up going. It is because I was smothering and I was suffocating, and if I didn't get out of that house in that community, I literally thought I was going to die. And so, I wish I could say that there was some grand scheme, but for me, it was just, it was literally something inside of me that said, you leave today or you die here. And I listened to that voice. Now, and I think I did get this from my dad, is you listen to that voice. I don't know what, and maybe it was living with an addict, right? Maybe it was living with a man who was dealing with substance abuse at a very young age. I learned to listen to that voice, not my head, which, that's the lizard brain, which keeps us small and makes us feel insignificant and tells us that we can never do or be or have anything. But that seat of power, which is that gut, right? That's what has kept me safe. I tell people all the time, this keeps me safe. This keeps me small. And I always listen to this. And maybe it was what I had to listen to as a kid for survival, but I always listened to it. And so when that gut said, you got to get out of here now, I listened. And that led me on journeys, and that led me to failings, and that led me to love, and that led me to more failings, and that led me to eventually to being a mom, and which, I didn't expect to be a single mom, but I was for the majority of my child rearing years. And that's okay because, I was able, again, it wasn't easy. It was hard work, and there are times where you're just scared and you're in dark places, and you go out on faith that you are doing the right things and you're not scarring them too badly, and you're loving them enough and holding them in safe places and all of those good things. And so that led me to working with communities and communities all over the world. I've been very fortunate that, I've lived and worked all over the world. And for me, that real connection is I would see women struggling to raise their kids by themselves. And I was like, that's me. There's no difference. So that mom in Haiti raising that kid is no different than me. Right? And the same struggles, right? And the power in that, and the beauty in that, and the sense of saying, there is something within me that will always keep me safe, that will always keep them safe, and that will allow me to go forth and do it in a way that's healing. And it's okay that I can go, the pain doesn't keep you small. As long as you listen to the voice, it's expansive, right? There are no limitations. There are no limitations. So I used to, I don't know about other women, but I have a belly from, getting older and having babies and all that other stuff. And I hate it, right? I would always hate it and talk about it and hide it. And, like it was, I just would be like, what is that? Why is that there? And then I saw something that said, that's the seat of your power. That's where all of the good stuff is, right there. So when we deny it and when we diminish it, we're ultimately diminishing ourselves. So now I'm always like, I love my belly. And I rub it, and I love it because that's my seat of power, and it deserves to be loved.
Yeah. So powerful. I was reading over some of your blogs again, and I'm going to recommend to people, even if you're not someone who thinks that the Adaway group would be beneficial for your coaching or consulting, I would say still sign up for your blogs, because they're about life. They're about living from that place of power with and freedom and lack of limitations and courage and all of that. So
because organizations need that, and individuals need that, and organizations are nothing but people. And if we are not going to be courageous enough to step up and step out, then why are we here, right? Comfort kills us. We love to be comfortable. We do everything in our power to stay comfortable, right? We buy better couches, and we get bigger TVs, and we buy bigger cars, and we just do everything possible. We buy, shoe, like everything, so that we don't feel not a second of uncomfort. We have to be comfortable at all times.
Yeah, and you wrote recently about how you've been challenging yourself to go to yoga and how uncomfortable that is for you.
Oh my God! Right? And not only do I just go to yoga, I go to Bikram yoga, right? So I go to hot, sweaty yoga, and I'm 5'9.5", I'm almost 5'10", and I'm a big woman. I have big breasts and hips and butt, and I go in the room, and there's all these little tiny, teeny women, and they do these moves, and they don't have breasts like slapping them in the face or anything, and and they're just like, oh, they're doing this stuff, and I'm just like, huh, like, what? This is painful and this hurts, and I want to grunt. Like, literally, I'm like in the back doing some of these moves in a 110-degree room, and it's core work, and I really, I want to come from that place deep, and I want to make sounds, and I want to grunt, but everybody's all quiet and zen, and so I'm like, but it's funny, but I'm actually strangely addicted to it, and I love it, and I realize it's because it's a challenge. And there are very few things in my life that personally challenge me. And so I go back to it because I'm really uncomfortable there. And if I'm really uncomfortable there, that's where I'm supposed to be. I know that's where I'm supposed to be. If I go in a room and I am uncomfortable, that's exactly where I'm supposed to be. Because there is something there that I need to get. And so we like to go where we're comfortable, where people look like us, they sound like us, they think like us. And I say, that's wrong. We're thinking at it from the wrong perspective. You're supposed to go where you're uncomfortable, because that's where the growth happens.
Yeah. What a powerful way to look at experience in the world, and to really walk into those going, okay, I'm here, I'm uncomfortable, and I'm just gonna be here.
No, woo, this is not feel good. Like, your body lets you know, right? You're like, this does not feel good. There's nothing about this feels good to me right now. But listen to that, hear that. Why doesn't this feel good to you? Why is this really so uncomfortable physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? Because I think that's where we need to be. Yeah, I do. So that's where transformation happens. Transformation does not happen by you sitting on your couch being comfortable.
Right.
Doesn't happen there. And it will never happen there. And somehow we think it will. Or doing the same job, or, again, not expanding your circles, just being around people who think like you, or look like you, or sound like you. There's no growth in those experiences, or very little.
So actively seeking that out, is that kind of a place where you push when you work with people or organizations? Do you support them in really standing in that place of discomfort?
Well, I do. And to be there, you have to, one, give people a safe place to land, right? And so you have to make it okay for failing. You have to be really okay with making a fool of yourself, with falling down, with failing. And I, with folks that I coach, individuals, I'm a real big fan of these 30-day challenges. Right? What makes you really uncomfortable? Let's do that for 30 days. Right? What don't you like at all? Let's do that for 30 days. Right? And let's try to create in our mind. For me, I did yoga 28. My goal was 28 classes in 28 days. I did 24 classes in 28 days. And the reason I did it was not because I necessarily love yoga, but I do, but it's because I'd gotten out of the groove of being physical. And I wanted my mind and my body to both connect with every day you do something physical. And that's really important. So I'm a big fan of kind of 30-day challenges, whether that's to eat eat healthy for 30 days, or to do whatever, to really kind of push myself in a way. Is there something that we all find ourselves saying, oh, I could never do that. Right? Oh, no. Oh, wow. You did that? I could never do that. And that's the thing you do for 30 days. Right? So think about, what is it that you could never, ever do? Do that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have to take some time after we finish this and
think
about that.
It doesn't have to be anything right away, but once you find it, then say, that's my challenge. Whether that's a 15-day challenge or a 30-day challenge, or you give yourself whatever that goal is. But it's the point of challenging ourselves regularly, right? Mm-hmm. How often do we do that? We don't very often. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, because we get nice and comfortable.
Yeah. And do you think that you got this you listen to that inner voice, and I want to just say too, when you're saying uncomfortable, that I want to make sure people know that's not danger. Like if your gut's telling you dangerous, get out.
And that's the difference. People equate reckless and fearless, and they're two things. No one ever saying put yourself in a dangerous situation, but we are saying make yourself feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And they're definitely different. And thank you for pointing that out. Thank you.
And for you, do you think this is innate in you, this way of being, or do you think it came from getting out there and being alone at 16 and 17 and traveling through Europe as a teenager? Combination.
Yeah. I don't think it was innate. I think this craving, this need for wanting something more was innate. That is in me, and I don't know where it comes from because it's no one in my family has it, but it is within me. But it's getting out there, right? I remember literally being 16, the only brown face, the only American, and I'm sitting at a table literally with 5 Greek men playing cards, like old Greek men, and we're drinking ouzo, and and I'm like, how did I get here? Like, what is this about? And constantly walking in rooms where I'm the only one, or going to situations, where that's it. And there's something for me that I've really been trying to teach my daughters, which is the world is yours, and there's no place that you cannot go. There's nothing that you cannot do. And so if that means that you are going to be eating goat eyeballs in Kyrgyzstan, then go do that. Or if that means you're going to, fly a plane, then go do that. Whatever it is, know that you're empowered to be there. That is your right. You can, as a child of this world, you have every right to go and be and do anything. And the only limitations are the ones we put on ourselves. Race is a social construct, right? Class, that's all social constructs. Yeah. And nobody gets to tell me what I can and can't. I'm ornery in that way. You don't get to tell me. Yeah. You just don't. And when you tell me I can't do something, then my brain says, honestly, I think not. Watch me. Like my response back is watch me.
Right.
Watch me. I can't do that. Watch me do it. And so, my poor mother. When I was 2, I must have driven her insane.
I think most 2-year-olds drive their mothers insane.
I'm sure the women dream. I'm sure I pushed her over the edge at 2, right? Because in my mind, imagine, right? I'm 47, but at 2, watch me climb, that table and chair and get up on the stove, or watch me was what I said a lot, and I still say it. Watch me. Mm. And my daughter did the same to me one day. She was trying to go to New York to do an internship, and we chatted about the requirements that she needed, the money she needed to save, and all the things she needed to do. And when it was time for the internship to go to New York, we went down the list, and she hadn't done a couple of the things on the list. And I just looked at her and I said, "Well, you're not going to New York. You didn't follow through." And the look on her face was the same look that I gave my mom my entire life. And she looked at me, and she didn't say the words out loud, but her face said, "Watch me." And that night, she wrote a letter. She sent it to 100 people she knew. And she asked for $30 each. And she made $3,000 so she could go to New York. And I said, "Oh, I guess you're going to New York because you got the money you were supposed to have saved." She's like, "I'm going." So she told me, "Watch me," and she did it.
Yeah. You passed it on.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. Trust me, I could have passed on a whole lot worse things than that. Yeah. So that she got that one, for me, felt validating. That's the lesson I want her to have. I want her to to tell the world, watch me.
Yeah.
And to do it.
Yeah.
And to know that it's okay for her to fail, because she's got people who are going to help pick her back up, and for her to go back out there and do it again.
Such an important lesson. I think that is one of the most important lessons we can teach kids these days.
Gotta let them fall.
Yep. Yep. And that it doesn't matter, that really, you know, memorizing and regurgitation isn't what's important. It's really about standing in your power and being who you are.
Yeah, and there is something there's something moving about seeing someone kind of being their whole self, especially young women, because we do everything in our power to not let that happen, right? Or even, I was thinking even for older women, right? Like, how many times a day are we told we need to look like we're 22 or be 22 or, you know, and I always joke and say, I can't be 20. I have a 22-year-old. I can't be 22. And I'm not. I am solidly middle-aged at 47. I am okay with all of that. You know, how old are you? 47. I have no qualms about saying how old I am or what. I'm not 22. I'm not supposed to be 22. I don't have the mind of a 22-year-old. I don't have the wisdom of a 22-year-old. I don't have the body of a 22-year-old. I can do yoga from now until I am, you know, 100 times. I will never have the body or the elasticity of a 22-year-old. So I play my game. I play the 47-year-old game. I don't play the 22-year-old game.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's beautiful and powerful. And it's, I mean, I wouldn't want to be 22 again.
No. You know, and I look at my kids and I love them, but, you know, the things that are, it just cracked me up. I just look at them and in my mind, I'm like, ooh, so glad that that's not, that's not me right now. But I love the wisdom. And I love the lessons, and I learn the reflection. Experience without reflection is meaningless. I love that I can be reflective upon my life, and I love that now I can articulate my needs. When I was 22, I couldn't articulate what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted, let alone be able to stand in a room and say, this is what I want. This is what I'm going after. Help me. That at 22. And that I could do that now for me is a great, great gift.
Yeah.
And I earned it. I fought to get here. I want this. I don't want to not have this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I hope, too, I mean, it sounds like your daughter is an example of maybe with us doing what we do and how we do it and hopefully not messing them up too much.
Exactly.
But giving them that ability to say at a younger age, this is what I want, help me.
Yeah.
You know,
and so one of the things, I was talking to somebody, and, you know, the way we raise our kids, the culture plays a big part in that. And I was saying to someone, you know, I grew up, my family, even though I was in Chicago, my family's from the South, and you grew up saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. You know, elders are always revered, which it powerful, and I love that. And my kids were raised, and my kids say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I've always raised my kids to be able to ask questions of anyone in the room, right? You do it respectfully. There's a time and there's a place, but you have a voice, and you can ask anyone anything. Just be prepared to get the answer. And I have to do that, and I did it when they were small, and because I wanted them when they're adults to be able to go into other places and ask questions and ask for what they want. And I can't tell them, oh, you don't do it here, but you do it there. You have to allow kids to do it everywhere, right? And you have to give them that space. And so I really wanted to raise young women with a voice, which means I had to let them have a voice at home, even when I didn't want them to have a voice sometimes. I had to let that happen. I had to let them give me feedback and tell me what I was doing crappy. And, you know, that's how we grow. Yeah. I had to hear them. I had to acknowledge them and give them space. And I had to hear them and listen. There is power in listening. You know, deep, soulful listening. It's the art of the question. It is listening and asking the right question. And so I had to do that for them and give them that, because I want them to go out and give that to the world. So,
that's beautiful. Yes, amen to that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you.
Trust me, they'll be in therapy talking about other things. So
Yeah,
it won't be that, but there'll be other things they can totally talk to their therapist.
of course. There's always something, right?
There's always something. So
All right, I'm going to ask you my final 3 questions here.
okay.
First one, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the world, what would it be?
It would be that how we don't acknowledge people, how we go past people every day and we don't see them. And people can't grow, they can't become fully themselves unless they're seen and acknowledged. And so I always ask people, who did you walk past this morning and didn't say hello to? Who did you walk past today and didn't acknowledge? Because they probably really need it and deserve that. So if we could all see and acknowledge each other, I think it would go a long way.
Yeah, I like that. One of my favorite things is to actually say hi to strangers walking down the street.
Absolutely. That's one thing I love about the South, right? They wave at you and everybody's like, hey, sugar, how you doing? Hey, honey. And okay, and they're passive aggressive in a lot of ways too, which I also kind of like. But yeah, I see you. Yeah. We're walking down the street. Let me look you in the eye and say, hey, good morning. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah. Acknowledge. People deserve to be acknowledged. They really do.
All right, you've given me lots to think about today as I go through my day and beyond. What brings you the most joy?
Oh. Connection. Connecting with people, and that doesn't have to be face-to-face. It could be texting, it could be Twitter, it could be Facebook. I just love the connection and knowing that you're not alone. Again, it goes back to being acknowledged. That we are so much more similar than we think we are. Right? What separates us in DNA is minuscule, right? And what separates us as humans and community is really quite minuscule. And let's focus on what makes us strong, not what makes us wrong. Right? Let's focus on the things that we have in common more so than the things that divide us. The things that divide us are important and they have to be dealt with and worked with. But if we can start from a place of strengths, where we're strong and where we connect, then I think that's the place to go from. So that brings me joy when we connect.
Mm-hmm. What's one fun or interesting thing about you that makes you uniquely you?
I have no problem laughing at myself. And I do it all the time. So I've decided, a friend of mine she loves to dance, so she's given herself a 30-day dance challenge where she's doing some kind of dance every day. And I'm joining her on some of these dancing. And we've gone waltzing and we've gone contra dancing. And do you know what it's like to be a black girl in a contra dance place? Like,
no, I don't.
Really? Well, and it's just fascinating. I'm like, there's a whole lot of beards and flannel here, and it was fun, but it was awesome. And right, I spent the whole time laughing, and as I got a partner and I would dance with him, the first thing I would say is, I've never done this before, and I promise not to break you. And they would always laugh, and they would help me get wherever I needed to go as they were doing these calls, and it was, you just laugh and smile and keep moving. And so, again, out of my comfort zone. But there's something great about being able to laugh at yourself and say, I went contra dancing. How ridiculous is that? But it was fun. Will I do it again? Maybe, maybe not. But I tried it, and I sucked. I was horrible. I was so bad. It was bad. And it's okay.
Yeah.
We make ourselves we have to do everything perfectly all the time. So I always laugh at myself, and and not in a way that is making me small, but I think in a way that is making me larger. That in my imperfections of not being able to contra dance, that there's some beauty in that.
Mm-hmm. It sounds really loving.
It is, and I was not loving to myself for a lot of years, and so it feels really good to be more loving to myself.
Mm.
I spent a lot of years not being loving to myself, and so it feels great to take care of, to nurture myself.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to find you, it's DesireeAdaway.com, and I'll have your bio below the video here.
Thank you. DesireeAdaway.com. Come check out the website. If you want to chat, just jump on my calendar, which you'll find the link there as well. I love meeting people. I just love it. And so I love feedback and reaching out. So feel free.
Yeah, and you also have a free ebook that people can sign up for your newsletter and download called Unconquerable. So
yeah, you can get that. And I travel a lot for work, and I do meetups in town. So who knows? I may be in a town near you, and I'd love to say hello face to face.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Desiree, for being here, for sharing so much of yourself. It was really fun.
Thank you for asking me, and thank y'all for listening and acknowledging me today. It felt really good to be acknowledged today. So
yay.
Yay. Take care.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.